What's up, guys? Joe Nae here of T&J Rock and Metal Talk. Look, I just want to take a few minutes to talk to you guys about this video that I watched. It's Counterintelligence, the first video, or volume 1, I guess we'll call it. It's titled "The Company." It's something I think everybody should watch. It kind of gives you an idea of what our government is up to, and some of the stuff. Some of you may be cool with it. I am not really cool with some of the stuff. I don't think we ought to be conducting ourselves out on the global stage this way. I think it's horrible. This is a video that I think every citizen should watch. No matter what country you live in, you should be aware that even if you don't live in a country where this is happening, it's something that could happen. It's something that could happen in your country, and it appears to be happening in mine. So especially those of you who are living in a more developed or superpower type nation, you know what I mean? Maybe some European countries, Great Britain, Australia, whatever. This is pretty much kind of like how the intelligence world works, I guess, at least mainly for the United States is what it's geared to. These videos, the group that put them out is a non-profit group. They didn't put these videos out to make money. They put them out for free on the internet, mainly just to educate people. So that's one way you can tell that this isn't exactly like a conspiracy theory type thing. It's more true, I think. I think a lot of it is true. Some of the stuff I can even remember going down and remember hearing some of these politicians talk about some of the things they've talked about. So some of it, I don't know. You can take it for what it is. A lot of it I believe to be very factual or true in nature anyways. Especially in light of like the Edward Snowden stuff and some of the things we've heard about where people have leaked government secrets and then the government's calling them traitors, but personally I think they might be patriots. The only reason that the government's calling them traitors, I think, is because that they're pissed off that they got told on for fucking up. So just to go over a few points of the video, you know, I don't have it planned, but I will have a link to it down in the description so you can go down and check it out, watch it for yourself, form your own opinions. I always encourage people to be free thinkers, think for yourself. You know what I mean? Don't take my word for it, check it out, and then you decide. And then maybe if enough of us watch it, we can decide what to do, go from there. You know what I mean? Let's try and make it so if we can't have a better world that we live in, maybe we can make it better for our grandkids and our great-grandkids and whatnot, our children. So we owe it to the future generations to come on this planet, because we all have to share the planet Earth. Nobody's moving, going anywhere else. To make it the best planet we can, to make it the best life that everyone can have, because you only get one. And there's no sense in having to live it in misery just so a few people can get rich. So I guess at the beginning, just to give you a little bit of background, that the United States learned their intelligence game from the British, who kind of perfected their system in the 19th century. That would be the 1800s, with their dealings in throughout building their empire, I guess. Those of you who don't know, Great Britain had quite an extensive empire for about 100 to 200 years. Well, I mean, really up until the latter part of the 20th century, the 1900s. You know, I mean, up until like World War II is when it started to go away for them. But they were really big. I mean, the United States, they had the colonies over here, so they've been big for a few hundred years. The CIA started off as the OSS, which the OSS was starting during World War II, and then after World War II, Harry Truman changed it over to the CIA during the late 40s. Well, throughout the 1940s, mainly the late 40s, like I said, after post 1946, up through the 1950s. And mainly was developed for, it was kind of our way of coping with the USSR, the Soviet Union. During the Cold War, we needed a means to kind of cope with that and deal with kind of the intrigue that was going on there. Personally, I think if everyone could have practiced better diplomacy, none of this would have been necessary. The Cold War probably wouldn't have even happened. Just goes to show what a little bit of diplomacy and understanding and human compassion can do for the human condition and just life on Earth in general. So initially, it was in charge of propaganda, economic warfare, preventative direct action, sabotage, demolition, subjugating hostile governments, assistance to underground resistance groups, support indigenous anti-communist elements, as well as an analysis of communist systems. Most of the recruits came from basically top industrialists and top lawyers and bankers of the day. It was kind of an elite society. Many came from Yale University with a skull and crossbones fraternity, providing many members. In fact, there was someone on the video that had a quote saying that the CIA is like going to a fraternity reunion for the Skull and Bones. The Skull and Bones fraternity was kind of creepy. You know what I mean? They hung out in like this dungeon-looking area, and they had a lot of actual human skulls, some of them children's skulls. They reportedly possessed Geronimo's skull, and when Geronimo's like grandson or great-grandson or something asked for a skull back, they refused to give it back. Some of the alumni include like the Bushes, along with many other prominent politicians. John Kerry, for one. That's both G.W. and G.H.W. Bush, both Bushes. In fact, the senior Bush was actually director of the CIA at one time. I don't know if you guys knew that. Prescott Bush, their dad, the first George Bush's dad, he was a financier, a banker. He actually helped finance Adolf Hitler, so he was kind of in bed with the Nazis for a little while. So were the Kennedys, by the way. Also, he is the one who allegedly dug up Geronimo's skull in the first place. President Truman, though he was the one who created the CIA, in later years, in the mid to late, after the assassination of John Kennedy, came out as saying that he regretted it in a Time magazine, and then I believe it was Robert Dulles, who was director of the CIA, then went ahead and killed that story, had the article taken out of the magazine. I believe it was like Time Life, but I'm not for sure about that, which magazine. Like I said, you have to watch the video to see. As early as 1954, the CIA covertly facilitated an overthrow of the democratically elected government of Iran. They didn't like who the Iranian people had elected in their government, so the CIA went in and had them overthrown covertly. That means behind the government's back. Our Congress didn't know, I guess, what was going on. But it's also kind of Congress's fault, since they're the one that makes the laws to allow the CIA to run covertly to begin with. But then again, if they don't know, then they don't have to worry about having responsibility pinned on them. So that's one way that they get around that. They just kind of let the CIA kind of know, but don't know what the CIA is doing, I guess. CIA often operates without congressional approval, and there was actually an act, I believe, in the late 40s that enabled this to happen. So essentially, from the 1950s through the 1980s, the CIA trained and funded various paramilitary death squads throughout Central and Southern America. And that was in order to install governments that would be friendly and loyal to the United States government, as well as turning over their natural resources to powerful businessmen in the United States. So essentially, since then, we were creating an empire. You know what I mean? Without calling it an empire, because we don't want to say we're not empirical, but really, we are. It's an economic empire. Let's see, some of the methods that they use for keeping secrets would be, it's called compartmentalization, which they would spread out intelligence duties over various different agencies, not just the CIA, but like the NSA or Naval Intelligence or the Secret Service, what have you, Army Intelligence, etc., etc., etc. And then there's a few other ones that I can't even think of the name of. So, and then with each one of those departments, like the CIA, NSA, whatever, then what they do is they form a lot of different departments, a bunch of different departments, and they don't really communicate with each other except for maybe up to the head person, and that's it within the actual agency. And then those departments, then what they do is they set up and utilize like fake companies, like, I don't know, like for instance, Joe and Dick's car wash. You know what I mean? It's really a training ground for a CIA death squad. You know what I mean? We're washing cars in Nicaragua, and they don't even have roads or cars. They all use horses, maybe. You know what I mean? It's silly shit like that they take advantage of. And then those little fake companies, they're the ones that run run ops for for the CIA or whatever intelligence agency it happens to be without the government's knowledge. That way it's called plausible deniability. The government can say, well, you can't tie it back to us, so we didn't know what was going on. Kind of like the Iran-Contra affair and Ron Reagan saying he didn't know what was up. That's what that is. He probably did, in fact, know what was going on, but he didn't know exact details, so he's able to give out what's called plausible deniability, which you know, you pretty much deny everything, is how that works. And even our allies aren't even safe. So in 1972, the CIA teamed up with MI6. They worked together to get Australia's Labour government thrown out. That's one of our allies, not just some pissant little South American or Central American country. That we're talking about Australia here. Okay, so even they're not safe. They did this. They assassinated some Australian businessmen, labor union leaders, as well as politicians. They trafficked drugs. What they did was they trafficked some drugs out of Vietnam during the Vietnam War, and they're using Air America, which was like Air America was like the CIA's like private air force in Vietnam. They used to move troops and equipment around for various clandestine operations as well as drugs. You know what I mean? Yeah, America is a drug itself is a drug dealing nation. Yeah, the entity responsible for the DEA is a drug dealer. Go figure. So anyway, they were trafficking drugs out of Vietnam, and then they were taking that money and to sell weapons, to get weapons to sell to Muammar Gaddafi. So he's working over in Libya. Now he's one of our enemies, but at one time he was our friend. How many times have you heard that? Osama bin Laden? We pretty much did the same thing for him. Hooked him up with weapons so he could fight the Soviets, and then ended up coming biting us in the ass. Now we say we hate him. So who knows, man? So anyways, we laundered all this money they were getting through our drug work and our arms sales through the Guggenheim Bank in Australia. And then what they did was, along with Rupert Murdoch, who was a media conglomerate or whatever, a big media guy. Used his news agencies to pin and frame the Aussie Labour Party leaders for all this illegal activity, and pinned them for when the Guggenheim Bank got busted for money laundering, and got them thrown out so that they could get a government in there that Great Britain and the United States was friendly with. Let's see, just some more shit that's going on. There's a place called Fort Detrick in Maryland, and it's used for the manufacturing of deadly poisons that they use to assassinate, you know, whoever they choose to. Usually people who they feel like they're getting too big, mainly leaders of foreign nations that are not friendly to us. You know, what we do is we have economic hitmen. We have these guys that will send in, and they'll try and talk in these leaders into taking a big loan from like the World Bank, which is actually ran by the United States. You know what I mean? So we want to give them a huge loan, and then one that they'll never be able to pay back. And then what we do is we give it to them, give them the money. They, you know, pocket most of it. Rarely do these leaders are usually corrupt, so they don't pass it on to the people or do what they're supposed to do with it. Then we come back and say, all right, like Venezuela, you owe us a bunch of money, pay up. And if they don't pay up, they don't have the money because we know they're not going to. That's why we gave them the loan in the first place. We knew they'd never be able to pay it back. We say, fine, then you need to give us these certain all your banana plantations, or all of your oil, or what have you, all of your silver, and then we'll send down one of our CEOs or one of our companies to come down and reap all the money from it. And they don't give a shit what the fuck they do to the environment or anything. They're just going there and exploit the people. So then the people are left there fucked. They're poor. They can't afford certain infrastructure things like they can't afford to have roads built. They can't afford to homes can't even afford to have electricity. They can barely even afford to eat, some of them. And these economic hitmen or whoever ends up reaping the benefits doesn't even give a shit. So the native peoples end up being fucked. And if that doesn't work, then we send in the jackals. We send in the people who are come down to either overthrow the government or assassinate the leader of the government so we can have the person we want in charge. You know, however it works out, we really don't give a flying fuck. That's just, that's pretty much our global attitude. do what we want, or fuck off. So what we have is an empire. We've had, like I mentioned before, we have an economic empire. And who's the emperor of the empire? An emperor of an empire, a leader of an empire, is someone who is not elected, somebody who doesn't serve a certain amount of terms, and that would basically be the heads of many of our major corporations, i.e. the Koch brothers, I would say, are probably involved in some of this shit. So these guys are the ones that are going around and allowing our government to go and take control of all these different countries, and then exploiting their resources or what have you for their own benefit, for their own profit. Give a fuck what they do to the environment down there. Don't care if they take out all the water and these people die of starvation or thirst or whatever. They don't give a fuck, and then they move on because all they're cared about is their own profits. And these guys also are the ones that are electing our government here at home. The ones that have plausible deniability. You know, we're paying for the politicians to be in. Because this doesn't matter. This goes on under the Democratic Party, under the Republican Party. It doesn't matter. Sometimes the one operation will start with a Republican president and end on a Democratic president. There's things that George W. Bush, operations that he sanctioned or was aware of or what have you, that happened under his watch, that continued on after Obama had come in. And sometimes it failed, but not very often. But you know, that's how it's working out, and it's because the people who win the presidency or are put in there are people that are bought and pretty much paid for and owned by some of these major corporations. So we have a corporate empire is what we've ended up with. And a lot of times, if we can't use our own military to come in and do the dirty work, we'll use security companies like DynCorp. DynCorp was a company that as late as like 2007, I think, they were receiving half of its revenue from the Department of Defense. They had some of its clients were like the CIA, the IRS, fuck you name it, just any government agency had used them for one reason or another. Like when we say we're pulling the troops out, like when we pulled the troops out of Iraq, okay, we pulled our official troops out. However, the taxpayers were still paying for some of these security companies to stay in there and still do the same thing. The only difference is these security companies operate without government oversight, or they don't have to follow the rules of the Geneva Convention, so they can go in there and they can sell slaves, you know what I mean, sex slaves, childhood sex slaves, boys, girls. They can sell them into sexual slavery and make money on the side because no one's watching them what they're doing. They're just in there, again, like their corporations, making money hand over fist. Or like, what's that, Halliburton? I'm sure they were in there making money, and they just happened to be directly tied to our Vice President Dick Cheney at the time. And you think that's coincidence? It's not coincidence. There are no coincidences. So I just thought I'd let you guys know that's what's going on there. There'll be more to come. There's actually 5 of these videos or episodes kind of talking about various forms of things that the government is up to that you may not be aware of. I plan to help them spread the word. I think that's very important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a link to this video in particular in the description if you want to watch the video, or you want to learn more about what's going on, or learn more about the people who are putting it out. Like I said, they're not in it to make money. They've produced these videos with their own money, and they put them out for free on the internet. They just want to knowledge is power, people, and I think, you know, we should all have a little bit of it. It's we're entitled to it, and we're entitled, at least in this country, in the United States, to know what the fuck our government's up to. So with that, don't forget to check out our channel and subscribe. Check out our website. That's tnjrockandmetaltalk.simdiff.com. I'll also leave a link to that in the description below. So as soon as you're done watching this, check out the description and check out those links and check out all the good stuff that they're set up to provide for you. So other than that, have a good one, and I'm out, bitch.